whether they're bottle feeding or breastfeeding or a combination. I always say, when you feed the baby, feed yourself. Like, give that as your cue. And if a woman's nursing, she probably needs about an additional 600 calories a day.
The time after giving birth, often called the fourth trimester, can feel overwhelming. With so much focus on the baby, it's easy for new mothers to overlook their own needs, and some may even start cutting calories in an effort to bounce back. But this is a critical time for healing and nourishment. This episode is a second part of my conversation with Judy Simon, a registered dietitian nutritionist and leading expert in fertility and postpartum nutrition. Now, we shift to why fueling your body during the fourth trimester is essential for both your well-being and your baby's. We'll cover everything from lactation to mental health, identifying what truly deserves your attention during this transformative period. In my conversations with Judy, we talked a lot about the importance of fiber at every stage. Fiber has so many great benefits, including keeping you regular, supporting a diverse gut microbiome, and stabilizing blood sugar. So, I wanted to start this episode by giving you one of my favorite high-fiber recipes. My lemon edamame hummus is a quick and delicious recipe that's perfect for summer. All you need are frozen edamame, tahini, a fresh lemon, and a few common spices you likely already have on hand. With just 7 minutes and a food processor, you'll have a vibrant, anti-inflammatory dip that's as nutritious as it is flavorful and packed full of fiber. Check it out at gingerhultinnutrition.com. I want to move on to part 2 because we talked about preconception and pregnancy, but I want to talk about the fourth trimester, postpartum nutrition and recovery. It's another specialty of yours.
Yes. And I'm really, really lucky because I get to develop relationships with my patients over time that many of them, they want support during pregnancy, at least once a trimester. But then I start talking about that fourth trimester. I start talking about it like in the middle of pregnancy. And there's different ways that a woman is going to choose to nourish their baby. They may be like 100% sure, I'm going to breastfeed. Some are like, I'll see, I'm going to bottle feed. And I learned really early on that we need to support a woman's choice. So I always try to be neutral, like, yeah, there's great benefits of breastfeeding. We want to make sure you know. There's a lot of ways to feed your baby. There's women that do both. But I always try to be really neutral than to just be this, there's only one way, because, well, there's a lot of guilt and shame when you're pregnant and when you're a mom. Am I doing everything right? And honestly, I'm a dietitian. And when I had my first child, I had to say, it wasn't just like the movies. I struggled at first breastfeeding. And if it wasn't for lactation support, bless them, who came to my house with a pump and helped me, I probably would have quit if I didn't have that help and have that support. So I think it's important that women understand, and that I want them to know that that fourth trimester, they're going to be healing. They're going to be healing from a pregnancy. They're going to be healing from giving birth. They're going to be healing if they've had a C-section, even longer. And they have to replenish all those nutrient stores. They gave their everything. Like, people don't realize a cool thing is when you're pregnant, I always wondered, like, well, why doesn't the calcium requirements go up? Oh, we absorb more calcium when we're pregnant to provide for the baby. So now if you're producing milk and calcium needs are even higher, are we depleted? Do we have all the vitamins and minerals to do the healing and potentially to provide milk for your child? So women are exhausted after childbirth. This might not be their first one. Their sleep is very interrupted. And often I find they're taking care of everyone else and their needs are last. So yeah, there's a lot of nutrition repletion. Think of what's had to happen with their blood supply had to double. All those adjustments. Are they having enough iron? Are they having, B12 folate? They're making all the demands of pregnancy and a lot of blood loss. And I know I was anemic after both pregnancies. I was wiped out. And I talked to them about who's going to feed you after you deliver your baby. Who's going to feed you? So I want to know, are they going to have family there to feed them, to give them what they need? How much time off do them or their spouse or their partner? Like, what's the plan? And some of the planners have a great first year plan and it's realistic, and other people have no idea what they're getting into. And they just tell me, like, oh my God, I'm barely surviving. And their mental health can really take a hit too, along with their physical health.
This reminds me so much. I had a client so long ago that came to see us at a community clinic in Seattle, and she had a newborn with her. And she was like, I'm holding my baby all day. I'm completely exhausted. I'm breastfeeding pretty much all day. And she was like, all I can drink, she's like, I can drink soda, like cola, and I can eat candy. And I said, hey, I understand that because she's like, I don't have hands. I have one hand and I can't prep any food. Wow. It was just very eye-opening to like what this person was up against.
Yeah, it is really tough. And so I try to give women little hints, whether they're bottle feeding or breastfeeding or a combination. I always say, when you feed the baby, feed yourself. Like, give that as your cue. Like, so what I used to try to do is sit down with water or something to drink. And now we have a few more modern technology things, but I would even sometimes have a snack, or like, okay, I need to have a snack. Like, as you get ready, what are you going to eat when you feed the baby? And sometimes when you get up in the middle of the night, then you need a snack. Then maybe you need cheese and crackers. Maybe you need a glass of milk. You need a snack. So you need additional protein for tissue healing. Omega-3s can be helpful to help reduce some inflammation. Vitamin C and zinc help with wound healing. But you don't have to think about the individual nutrients. I think you just have to think about your eating well-balanced diet. And if a woman's nursing, she probably needs about an additional 600 calories a day. That's like another full meal. And they're like, really? I want to lose weight. Because this is what I hear. Like, I want to lose my pooch. I just had a baby and I want to lose it. Well, that doesn't even always happen while you're nursing. I never make a guarantee for a woman that you're going to lose all your pregnancy weight. Of course, the next day you've lost a lot. Your fluids return back to normal. But there are a lot of women like, well, when am I going to lose this last 10 to 15 pounds? If they had a C-section, they can't even exercise for a while. They have to wait till they're fully healed. They can't even lift the baby. I mean, they really have to have help, with lifting and everything. So I think it's really important to understand that they need to be well nourished. And so when people set up wonderful things like meal trains, I always say, tell them what you want, or you're going to get a lot of Costco lasagna. If you want, nothing against them, but if you want some variety, just say, oh gosh, I would love like some, salads or all-in-one meals. Please include vegetables, because a lot of times people mean well and you just get all like starchy casseroles and you're like, would someone please include a vegetable? I mean, I tell people, send fruit baskets to people who are pregnant, who are just delivered. Then they've got some fresh fruit. And sometimes people will ask for meal delivery kits, or even some of the ones that are prepared, like give them a gift certificate if that's something they like. Like we have some home delivery in Seattle that are very fresh. And then they could pick off the menu and be like, oh, this would be fun to have, so you're not just stuffing their fridge. So I think ask for help, ask for support. And you don't have to think of the individual nutrients. Stay on your prenatal, stay on it. Okay. Want that nutrient dense food because you need energy, because you are giving it all for healing. And if you're nursing, you're giving it for lactation. It takes a lot of energy. It can take up to 900 calories a day to produce milk. You need so much energy to produce milk. And babies aren't just steady. They have these like growth curves and like a growth jumps. Like sometimes at 8 weeks, you feel like, my gosh, this baby's drinking every other hour. And they're going through a spurt where then you're making a lot more milk. You're going to be hungrier. So you really have to think about, how can I get enough nourishment? And I have women that are cutting back because they want to lose weight. They're like, I don't need so much now. And they're cutting out grains and things. I'm like, no, you need grains, you need oats, you need fats, everything you need for pregnancy, plus, 10 to 20% more, so that you heal, you feel good. And then you have the energy that once you get the energy, I want to go take a walk with the baby. I want to move again, because you are tied down a lot when that's a terrible thing to say. You have to be sedentary a lot. It forces rest when you have to nurse. That's what I used to think about. You have a comfy chair, it forces you to rest. When you're nursing a baby or you're bottle feeding a baby, it does force you to rest. but then you do kind of want to move. So I think knowing if you nourish yourself and try to get sleep and you have support in the perfect world, that you're going to be able to get out there and have fun and be out there with the baby.
Right. You're going to feel better if you're nourished. I really get a lot of people coming to me, though, saying that they want to lose weight. I don't think you're going to be as effective at breastfeeding if you're under eating and you don't have enough calories.
You know what? That's exactly true. And sometimes people are trying to take all these, they call them galactagogues, all these supplements that can help their milk supply. And a lot of times I'm like, let's talk about what you're eating. I go, no matter what size they are, I go, you need to eat more. Because if your body's like, hey, I don't have enough energy to nourish this baby and nourish you, you don't want to be in a big calorie deficit. That could be really hard on you. Now, that being said, I don't want you like your poor patient who had no access and was drinking soda and candy. Not that an occasional one's going to hurt you, but that you have access and you have the resources to those foods. And that's why in programs like WIC, Women, Infant, and Children, they continue to support them that fourth trimester because their needs are so high and they want them to have the resources available. So think about if you're struggling, that's going to be hard. The people who don't listen to our podcasts and all don't have that to resources. So really important.
Yeah, for that woman who is doing her very best, we talked about having someone else help her make like energy balls or bites, right? I have lots of recipes on, just like grab and go because you need something to eat with one hand. Or I love the idea of the fruit basket, but having support, doing the work ahead of time to get a meal train going, that can be really powerful.
And telling them what you need. And then a lot of women who like control, they like to stock up their freezer and they'll ask people to do it or they'll do it themselves. You know what? We're going to have like some chili or soup. And we're going to have things ready that we know we like. We can pull it out of the freezer and we have those available. They kind of do a little stock up before they tell their friends that they want. And there is a percentage of women, and I don't know the exact number, that have postpartum depression. And when you're hit with mental health challenges, like, hey, you know what? Motherhood is hard in some ways. It's wonderful. It's challenging. It's a new role. Emotionally, mental health wise, we want to take care of her emotionally. So if she's afraid to eat or she's just shut down, those omega-3s, the seeds and the nuts, like the nut ball, if she likes fish, keeping up with vitamin D to help with, mood regulation, all those vitamins and minerals, they're really going to help for brain health, but she probably needs support in stabilizing blood sugar. So think about it. If you've been up all night and you're really tired, then you feed the baby and you just want to go back to sleep and you haven't eaten in over 12 hours, your blood sugar is going to be plummeting. And how is that going to help your mood at all? So if somebody has like a smoothie ready, like a delicious, maybe yogurt or soy milk, fruit easy smoothie or a chia pudding that kind of puts it all in one thing and you could just drink it, that's going to be really, really helpful.
Or I do for my oncology folks. There's just so many overlaps between like going through chemo and like yeah,
See?
totally. But I do the Orgain grab and go shakes because it's like ready to go. You don't need to do your blender or anything.
Absolutely. Yes. A lot of my patients, I have a lot of patients that are pretty, and some of them don't tolerate milk. So I do recommend plant-based products like Orgain that have the pea protein or, soy milk, and using those as a really easy way to get nutrition. So having some ready-mades, I'm so glad you brought that up, is like, you're right, but I think it's important that there's no rush to get your body back. You need nourishment, rest, and support, and that comes first. And having those nutrients, and the stronger and the more rested and the better you feel. For a lot of my fertility patients, this was a 5-6 year journey to bring home this baby. And I go, be in the moment. Enjoy while they're little for 3 months. And you're nursing them. I loved it personally. I have 2 children. And one of my favorite things was get in your comfy chair, put on some nice music, and just relax. I used to sometimes read baby books or whatever and just say, I'm a go, go, go person. It was like, nope, you have to slow down. And it's kind of a beautiful thing. But you need to have those support people. And if you don't, then what can you order in that shows up? What ready-mades can you have ready? There's some beautiful minimally prepared foods that nobody should ever feel ashamed about eating. I just care that women are eating. I remember after my second one, I had a 20-month-old and a newborn, and that was back when people got a week or two off of work, so everybody left. I had a 2-week-old infant and a toddler running around my house. And I thought, if they were clean and fed, it was a victory for the day. I think it's important that women have that support from their people. When people ask, be very specific. If grandma wants to come and help, or Nana, whoever is coming, sometimes you want them to do the laundry and play with the other kid.
This episode is brought to you by Orgain. If you're a mom looking for something quick and convenient when you're on the go, Orgain's certified organic nutrition shake is a great choice. It's got 16 grams of organic grass-fed protein, plus vitamins, minerals, and even fruits and veggies. It comes in 4 different flavors, including a delicious cafe mocha. It's perfect for mornings, between meals, or anytime you're looking for easy nutrition. Head to Orgain.com to learn more. A lot of people are back to work really fast. That could, of course, make mental health worse. I agree with you. Skipping meals, being hungry, being underfueled, and not sleeping, that's going to compound mental health issues in the 4th trimester.
Absolutely. It's tough. It's really tough to be resilient. And that's why I talk about it. Like, I have some pregnant patients say, once they're in 2nd trimester, we kind of map out what could 3rd trimester look like. One thing, I know we're in 4th trimester, but when people ask me early on the journey, when they ask, like, how can this whole arc be wonderful? I have patients that they've had gestational diabetes, they're already scared about having diabetes, or they've had hypertension in pregnancies, and they have some, preeclampsia. That's some pretty tough deliveries. Okay, think of how much more stressful it is when they deliver and have that 4th trimester. So I'm kind of going back to the beginning, that if we plant that seed early, whether your pregnancy was planned or not, what you do throughout it is going to help you through that whole life cycle, that she can have the healthiest start. And remember also, we talk about the first 1,000 days of a baby's development, right? We didn't mention that. And it starts 3 months before conception. So mom's diet and reducing stress, just that throughout the pregnancy makes a difference on those genetic markers, what's flipped on or off for chronic disease for children. So when a woman can reduce her stress, sleep, eat healthfully, you've helped with the genetic programming of that child's life. And I just kind of think of that arc into the 4th trimester, that it starts in the beginning.
Thinking of that arc is just so fascinating. For anyone that's unfamiliar, the first 1,000 days, it's critical. I was in a global health nutrition class last summer, and that was studies around the world on how we need interventions, and brand new infants, it can affect them for life.
That's right. What happens in those first 1,000 days, that's why we have programs like Head Start and WIC, because we want to support every family. They need nourishment and how to reduce stress in their life, and how that sets that child up genetically for even reducing risk for their heart disease and excess weight gain and things like that. And then lastly, I just wanted to add endocrine disruptors. I just want to drop in there that trying to reduce risk of men and women, their exposure, and the easy ones to think about are bisphenol A, BPA, which makes plastic hard. It's in the lining of your cans. It's also just not easy things. Don't put plastic in the microwave. Don't heat up plastic, because that bisphenol, that endocrine disruptor, can impact fertility, but it can be carried on 3 more generations. And we think it can have impacts on the baby in utero. So little things, using glass, using ceramic, not using plastic bottles more than once. And then the other big one that families can do, and this can help have a healthier environment for fertility, pregnancy, and children, is reduction to what they call phthalates. Easy way to think of it, reducing fragrance in your body products and in your cleaning products. Use less expensive things like white vinegar and baking soda, and buy dish soaps that don't have fragrance. They don't have to be expensive. A lot of cleaning you can do. And like your laundry, using unscented. If you just change those in 24 to 48 hours, you reduce your exposure greatly. They have a short half-life. And then you don't have that exposure in utero. And then when you're using products with your child, just give up the fragrance. You can use natural things like lavender, things like that. But those little things, and I talk about them because they touch food.
Can you just define endocrine disruptors? And I'd love a little bit more information about it for anyone that's not familiar.
Yeah, so endocrine disruptors are added to products, and usually they're done, like bisphenol A actually makes plastic harder. And so now the government has actually, we are not allowed to have BPA in baby bottle nipples or pacifiers. So they actually disrupt the chemical processes in our body, and they can have an impact on hormones. And you know what? I've had patients that were told by a provider, like really scared them about this. And then they went home and they took 2 days off of work and they threw everything out. I even say, finish your favorite thing and see if you can get a different shampoo or conditioner. We do have a story in the book about a woman, and honestly, it was her last embryo. She was in her 40s. It was really kind of their IVF. And first, we helped her from going to a very heavy meat based to more plant based and fish, eat more times. She was feeling really good, but she was really into hair and skin. And she brought about 35 of them into my office, and her husband and I went through them. He said, listen, I will go to a place that sells these products. We will find ones without that. And I said, can you do it for 3 months? Like, she wants to do everything. And she has a healthy baby. So I go, that's an N of one, but I just want to show that, there was one more thing, changing her nutrition, reducing her exposure, and being able to have a healthy pregnancy. So really positive outcome there. So
For sure. And, you and I are dietitians, but I think a lot of people don't realize that we do talk about environment and endocrine disruptors. We do talk about stress, sleep, physical activity. Like, we are holistic practitioners.
and we have to. And you know what? I hope that if somebody's at their sleep doctor, that I hope every provider's talking about nutrition, because if they hear it from their docs first, they're like, oh, PCOS, I heard nutrition's
Yeah.
important. The more you hear it accurately, then they want to come and see you and get that personalized experience or read a book about it that's from someone who's educated, knowledgeable. Right. Absolutely.
But I want to talk about supplements in fourth trimester, because I think you mentioned to continue prenatal, but tell me more about that, what to look for.
Yeah. I tell people if they were comfortable on the prenatal they had, they can stay on it, because I think having that extra iron can be really helpful with, blood supply. They don't have to be on it forever, but at least, maybe those first 3 months of first trimester. But if you have adequate vitamin D, studies have shown that if the woman is having 6,000 IUs of vitamin D, which is much higher than the dietary, recommendations, but having that much, her milk can supply adequate vitamin D. Otherwise, we do have to, for breastfed women, supplement with vitamin D. So that's important too. So I think the prenatal for that fourth trimester can just give us a little extra support while we're getting, back, to that normal hormonal balance. And then, most of our prenatals, I do recommend some iodine. And so thyroid is going to change, throughout. And people don't realize that even if they have a normal thyroid, it really kind of directs all the reproductive hormones. And so we have different hormones, prolactin, when we're producing milk and changes there. And a lot of women that I work with, they're already thinking about their next baby. I know we like to have a little, there's a lot of women thinking like, after I win this baby in about a year, I'm going to think about the next one. Just tell them to stay on their prenatal. Or some women do get pregnant when they're nursing. And so that's why, at least if they were on like a woman's multi with a little iron and folic acid, that could give them a little protection and help. But I would say for this fourth trimester, now, if a woman is not nursing, I would say that not lactating at all, she probably doesn't need to stay on it very long, if she's eating a healthful diet. But if she is nursing, I think it can be helpful. I know there's some lactation formulas. There's even prenatals where they have you preconception, a first trimester. And they're kind of making it options here, because we really don't know exactly what you need each trimester. These are very hard studies to do in maternal health. They're very hard. We are making our best scientific recommendations based on the data that we have. Like you and I know the choline thing is newer, finding out. And that's so important because that's BB's brain development. And that choline works synergistically with folate to develop the neural tube. And so a lot of people are not realizing that because when we added folic acid and we added folic acid supplementation, neural tube defects went down, but they didn't go. So that's why we're thinking that choline is kind of the link. And then again, for brain development, iodine is so important. So if she's nursing, maybe making sure mom has enough iodine and passing that on. And then also using iodized salt. But then iodine is helping her TSH level, her thyroid levels to be normal.
It's a great point, Judy. And now I just like to give a little plug for iodized salt, not sea salt, because that's one of our richest sources. And people, for some reason, don't like to use it, but it's really important, especially for fertility. What are the 3 key takeaways that you really hope that listeners remember from our conversation today?
Okay. Well, I would say number 1 is enjoy food. Okay. So don't think it is just as nutrition. Enjoy food and be curious and make it fun when you're exploring ways for this whole preconception, prenatal, really enjoy food. Okay. Because if it just feels like a hassle, like, oh, could you just give me a diet plan? It's not going to be very fun. Try to engage in it. The second one I would say is really focus on being more plant forward. How can I, work that in? Okay. And then the third is really support and look at your whole lifestyle because everything you do in your lifestyle can have such a positive effect, like tomorrow, like movement or trying a new yoga class or trying a new recipe that really feels good. And some of my patients who are like so used to counting calories, they go, I have to count something, Judy. So sometimes they go, okay, for 1 week, be curious about how many grams of fiber you eat. And they go, that was so much fun because now I know what it takes to get to 25 to 35 grams. And they go, and by the way, I'm pooping regularly every day. They always want to tell me that I'm pooping like a champ. So like that you can get immediate benefits because there's so much waiting in this whole life cycle reproductive stuff that if you can start feeling good immediately, I think you're more likely to just do really well.
The connection between nutrition, health, and recovery is such a critical conversation, and it was a privilege to have an expert like Judy on the podcast to help unpack it all. Her perspective on the 4th trimester as a time to slow down, heal, and nourish yourself really stood out. In a culture that often pressures women to quickly bounce back and resume life as usual, Judy's message is a powerful reminder. Being patient with yourself and honoring your body's needs isn't just important, it's exactly what both you and your baby deserve. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.